We welcome you to hour number 3 live right here on a Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. It's Ben, it's Donnie, it's one final hour. Now one final hour up until 11 a.m. Eastern time here all across the grid, including the SportsGrid Radio Network. We will get you set for the return to action in the regular season following the All-Star break in the association. 12 games tonight. Our prop man himself, Tom Vecchio, joins us a little bit later on to look at some of the best games on the NBA slate, and your two premier NBA handicappers back in business. DRS and myself, BSS, get you set for a big night around the association and some college basketball thoughts as well. Early MLB leans with our MLB insider, Craig Mish, in just a little bit as well.
Yeah, an action-packed final hour. And by the way, out there, not a lot of votes here on the SportsGrid TV account. Is the reason being, Ben, internet outages, phone companies, many cell phones not working out here. So we'll chalk it up to that as opposed to nobody cares about voting on anything that has to do with the NBA at this point. So we'll put in a built-in excuse for that one today.
That has to be the reason. About 90 votes, but a couple of replies into our conversation after LeBron calls it a day. 21 years in the NBA. He will play in the year 22, we would assume, waiting for Bronny James to enter the association. After LeBron is gone, who is the new face of the NBA? That's what we asked you at SportsGrid TV, the Fade the Public poll. But before we get to that, we welcome in our SportsGrid radio audience here. Sirius XM Channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. He is Donnie right side. I am Ben Stevens. Our radio audience, and if you'll allow me quickly here, DRS, maybe our most loyal viewer. A big happy birthday shout out to my father, Rich Stevens. It is his birthday on this Thursday, February 22nd. He tunes into the early line each and every day. A huge consumer of all things the grid. Fajman, a very happy birthday to you.
Now, what's the age? Can we give the age out here? We're allowed to do that or no?
Let's just say it will be easier for him to shoot his age on the golf course today. Yeah.
Wise man, nevertheless. Hopefully has a lot of shepherd's pie out there, has a couple Guinnesses today, relaxes and enjoys. So we got it covered on this side here, but certainly a happy birthday to who I like to call Mr. Rick out there on the West Coast. Love it.
You know the libations will be flowing. We got to give him a birthday gift, the best bet to end out this third hour. One of us did yesterday. The other one did not. Not going to name names or share out specifics. Yeah. Hey-oh. I think Duke and Miami went well under 150 and a half, but we'll just leave that at That's good, man. That's good. You're always very sharp and quick on your feet. So we asked the public to end out hour number 2. Who will be the face of the NBA after LeBron James calls it a career? He's in year number 21. We gave you 4 options. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jason Tatum, Nikola Jokic, or other. If you selected other, you must reply. Both Donnie and I went with other, but Giannis led the way in the Fade the Public poll, and also Concierge of Crime did reply with a Giannis Antetokounmpo gif. Again, we disavow crime. I'm not exactly sure what the handle is, but we like to give him a shout-out. Anyway, Game Day Dave said Steph Curry, but he's also getting up there in age. The All-Star break allows us some time to reflect. He was asked about his future in the NBA, hasn't really considered retirement or anything of the sort. You hit other, and you said Mac McClung was your face of the NBA. What a parody show this can turn out to be. How come Mac McClung?
I mean, come on. He is the current face of the NBA right now since nobody wanted to perform at the All-Star break outside of Matt McClung here. Maybe he should be on there. But you know what's interesting about this? The up-and-comers, right, of the past couple years, like the Trae Youngs, like to get the absolute excitement out of everybody. Who didn't enjoy Trae Young coming into the NBA being the face of it? Looks like it's probably not going to happen. A guy that could have been the face of it, Ja Morant, was on a slingshot to the moon here. But, you know, off the field things and suspensions tend to derail your career because you can't have one of those, face it, it's going to be Steph Curry now. Well, he's at the end of it here. We want the next great thing. And I know you're talking about Anthony Edwards there for the Minnesota Timberwolves. That does make a lot of sense. Yeah. But you also need to be the guy to be super charismatic as well. Could it be Luka Doncic at this point as the face? Because it is a global game at this point. So there are some worthy components and worthy options out here, but we just don't have that guaranteed next guy that we've been waiting on for 20 years, who finally got to the NBA in his first 3 years, has delivered, and we can watch him play for another 15. That's the struggle here.
Yeah, and listen, there is a generational talent that was as highly touted as LeBron James, potentially, who entered the NBA this season, the number one overall pick in Victor Wembanyama. He is also a very charismatic young man. As he continues to progress in the NBA, might he take the mantle as the face of the association? Before we get to Jason Tatum, I did mention Anthony Edwards. Now, Ant has said a couple of things in times past that, again, we disavow, like the concierge of crime. But if he can clean up the act moving forward, Anthony Edwards, as charismatic and enjoyable as you will find. There are some social media memes that compare him to Michael Jordan, a former face of the NBA. In terms of actual play on the hardwood, I already think the Ant-Man is one of the 10, 15, 20 best players around the association. His T-Wolves best record, 39-16 in the Western Conference at the All-Star break. Jason Tatum also had this conversation throughout the All-Star break. He opened up on his quest to become the next face of the NBA to The Athletic. He said, quote, "It's mine to take." It is what sparked this conversation even here on the early line and with our production team at the SportsGrid Network. Yesterday, we had no Tatum talk in terms of the NBA MVP conversation. He's 20-1 right now, despite he's putting up great stats as the best player of the best team in the NBA for Boston. And yet you saw it with the Fade the Public poll, only 16% believe Jason Tatum even has a chance to be the face of the NBA after LeBron calls it a career.
Like, we've seen him on some national campaigns with Subway and also SoFi. It makes you want to put to sleep here. That's how charismatic he is during those commercials, because that's half it. Isn't that it? You have to be a great basketball player off the court and then transcend basketball off of the court, like a larger-than-life figure, like the Shaquille O'Neals and the Charles Barkleys continue to do. Or else you just have to be the greatest player maybe to ever play the game in Michael Jordan at that point. That's why LeBron James, he's done so many great things since his time in the NBA, which does include being one of the best players of all time. It's easy. You put a microphone in front of him, he's got stuff to say. He's electric on the basketball court. He's in movies. He's in commercials. You know him right away as one of the legit superstars in the world, not just in the sporting environment. Those are really tough shoes to fill. Somebody's going to have to step up, and maybe we do have a void for a season or two until somebody takes that mantle, Ben.
You're a brand, you're a persona, you are a personality, you are charismatic. I don't know Jason Tatum enough. I'm not going to talk about how engaging his personality is. He's got a really cute kid in Deuce. He might be the face of the NBA. I don't really care in these conversations. I just think, hey, it's a little bit to fill the time here in terms of the NBA. Somebody will emerge. If Nikola Jokic wanted to, he could be. He is charismatic and funny. And his horses, they could rule the day. MLB conversation next. Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Chioriano doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6, you lose. 7, you push. 8, you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points. Defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points. And then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Hope springs eternal around Major League Baseball. Spring training underway. The MLB map with Craig Mish. Live right here on this Thursday on the Early Line. Craig, thank you for joining us here on TEL, the host of Newswire, our Major League Baseball insider all across the SportsGrid network. Craig, again, we appreciate the time. I'm going to be at a spring training game in just over 2 weeks down in your neck of the woods in Palm Beach, Florida. I'm getting ready to go. I can feel the baseball in the air.
Which game are you going? Did you end up doing Jupiter or Palm Beach? Which one?
Which one is Roger Dean? Would you consider that Jupiter or Palm Beach?
That's Jupiter. Yeah, no, that's Jupiter. Okay.
Yeah,
You said
Roger
Palm Beach
Dean,
is
Chevy
a
Stadium.
little bit further south. Yeah, a little like 10 minutes away from it. Yeah, okay.
Spring training home of the Cardinals and the Marlins. Yes. I am going as a part of a large group and festivity on Saturday, March 9th to see the Amazons, the New York Mets, take on the
I have bad
Redbirds,
news
the St.
for you
Louis
for
Cardinals.
that game. They announced there's no alcohol served on March 9th. It's the only day. So sorry, Ben.
Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. Don't pat us down then. Very good luck there. So, Craig, as we get ready for a new Major League Baseball season to begin, we showed a list yesterday of some of the free agents that are still outstanding around MLB. Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, Jordan Montgomery, and Tim Anderson, the former Chicago White Sox, was on that list as well. What do you know about what Tim Anderson's status is around MLB?
Yeah, Ben, look, I think that we could get some resolution on this as soon as today. And look, again, a lot of things can happen between now and an hour from now or 2 hours from now. But this is, clearly something I'm watching because it has to do with the Marlins. But in my opinion, and again, this could still go a number of different ways, is I do think he's going to end up signing with the Marlins. So I think he'll take over there at shortstop for them for this season. Money in terms of where that is still remains to be seen. And by the way, not official yet or anything like that. But I do think that Anderson is going to be a Marlin. I do.
Yeah, we'll see what the numbers come out to be there, but that's nice to have a veteran shortstop there and also with some pop down there in South Florida. We'll see how it turns out. Now, if he does end up being a Marlin, maybe the guy he's not going to face early in the season, Senga here, Kodai Senga from the New York Mets. Looks like he's down already with shoulder issues. And correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, is this an annual rite of passage here to enter in the baseball season with arm fatigue and or shoulder problems for superstar pitchers in the Mets? What's going on up there?
It's a very rare situation, Donnie. This generally doesn't happen a lot with the Mets. You think back in history with some of their best pitchers like, Matt Harvey or Jacob deGrom or Verlander or Scherzer. So here we are again. Look, I don't know. It's still very early on to tell if there's anything to this. Pitchers have – I know it sounds crazy to have arm fatigue very early on in the spring, and you're like, wait a second, this guy hasn't thrown. How can this be? It happens to everybody at different stages. And Senga's pretty much been an Iron Man wherever he has pitched. So rather than like sound the alarms yet, I'm going to wait to see this play out a little bit more because, again, opening day still far away. I mean, it is, we forget, like this spring training first games start today with the Dodgers and Padres, but we don't have any games outside of those two teams until March 28th. So there's plenty of time for him to get ready at this point. If he needs a week or two off, it shouldn't really affect anything.
So bummer for me and the group of 15 joining me on Saturday, March 9th at Roger Dean Stadium. No alcohol and no Kodai Senga is what we can expect for the spring training affair between the Mets and the Cardinals. Craig, you mentioned spring training games actually beginning. The Dodgers featured in that. They were the story of the offseason. Yamamoto, Shohei Ohtani, Tyler Glasnow. The list goes on and on for what the Dodgers added up in the payroll, and now the World Series favorites at plus 320. What I find interesting, though, knowing how random a sport baseball can be in a postseason run in October, less than $1.50 of difference between the Dodgers and the other heavy hitter from the league, the Atlanta Braves. So, Craig, as you evaluate L.A. with Shohei Ohtani only as a DH this year and not on the bump, how much farther ahead do you think L.A. is from the rest of Major League Baseball?
I think they're further ahead, Ben, in the regular season for the rest of Major League Baseball. But it's just like turning into the NCAA tournament in a way, Major League Baseball. Yeah. And you like Arizona getting to the World Series last year. It's like you can't predict this stuff. So, look, in the end, they're going to win probably 100 games or more. So they're going to be 30 or 40 games ahead of most teams in Major League Baseball with the stacked lineup and the pitching staff that they have. But I don't know that that equates to a World Series. I just don't think you can buy one of those anymore. But I do think that there'll be a juggernaut during the regular season. I know their win total is, if I'm not mistaken, like 103.5 or 104. I've never seen a team that high. And I've been following this a long time. So, far be it from me to say bet the over on that. But I do think that 100 games is certainly within reason. And the other thing, too, is that they could have everything wrapped up going into the last week and then not really care to play in the last week, too. And that could put them under, too. So I usually stay away from those very low ones and very high ones.
If we're asking around Major League Baseball, keeping with the Dodgers here, Craig, like what's the surmise of them being that, let's just say they're so talented, such a large payroll? Do people just say like, oh, we hope to chase them down? Or is like the vibes in other locker rooms, like the Braves, the Astros, the Yankees, Rangers, and Phillies, like, yeah, you know what? They're a good baseball club, but we can certainly take them down.
Yeah, look, I definitely think, to me, Donnie, like I just keep picking the Braves every year, and they fall short in the postseason. So to me, that's still the team that, barring injury, they are just so stacked start to finish. I was actually looking at some rosters right now because, again, there's some free agents that are still out there, and try to make a case for anybody to crack playing time in Atlanta. Like, if you can't do it, they were just so loaded. In that offense, especially, too. The pitching, I suppose anything can happen with them. But Atlanta, to me, Donnie, again, is still the team. That Philadelphia is going to be there in the end as well, as we saw last year, too. But Atlanta, this time around, I would guess, in July, if they really want to make the big push toward the World Series, I think they're going to probably have to alter their thinking a little bit and say, hey, look, what we have looks great. It may not be enough. Let's make sure and get something else of significance, which they didn't do last year.
So you saw that playoff potential, the postseason map, if you will, before even the first game of 162 begin. The Dodgers are a minus money favorite to be the top overall seed in the National League playoffs. The Dodgers are a minus 390 favorite to earn that opening round bye. Both the Dodgers and the Braves are an odds-on minus money favorite to reach the National League Championship Series, which would be the NLCS between Los Angeles and Atlanta. Craig, is it going to be that easy this year in MLB? The Dodgers, the Braves, NLCS, let's just fast forward?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that there could be others involved, no question. Arizona's fortified their team, and I think they'll be really good. We're still waiting to see if the Cubs end up with Cody Bellinger. If they end up with him, maybe they even take a bigger step and end up with another player as well. There's still free agents out there. As you look at basically the way that they judge this now, by the way, guys, with free agency is WAR. How many wins above replacement are these players worth to teams? Is it 2? Is it 5? Is it 7? Very hard to get to those numbers. You still have a couple of players that are out there that are worth that could move the needle. So I think we have to wait and see how it plays out. But if Bellinger goes back to the Cubs, you've got to clearly put them in that conversation too. Those 3 teams on that graphic that you showed, The Dodgers, the Braves, the Phillies, to me, those are the three. I'd put Arizona 4. I don't know how the Cardinals factor into that. To me, they don't. And the Cubs, I still would have to. I mean, maybe there is some value of taking the Cubs now, but I don't think that Bellinger automatically puts them into that top 3 conversation.
Craig, about 40 seconds left in this segment. Quick thoughts on the American League. The Astros, a slight favorite, plus 380, 10 cents in front of the Yankees. The defending World Series champs, the Rangers, third best price at plus 650. Who has your eye first and foremost in the AL?
Yeah, the 4 teams that you have there at the top, Yankees, Astros, Orioles, Rangers, I think is all very conceivable. I think there's a possibility of all of those teams getting in. But the one team every year that we never discuss because they're boring and every year they're in there, Ben, is that the value is always going to be on Tampa Bay. I mean, it's just always going to be on the Rays. They're going to go over their win total. They're going to be in the postseason. What happens in that spot? A break here, a break there. Now they're in the ALCS. Never rule out the Rays. I've learned that a long time ago.
We will hear more from Craig Mish at 11 a.m. Eastern on Newswire. We're back on TEL in just a few. Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Chiorio doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points. Defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points. And then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Thursday on the Early Line. It is a prop perspective, finally. once again. After 3 days off following All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis from the All-Star break, Tom Vecchio is here on this Thursday to set the stage for the home stretch that begins and the regular season resumes tonight in the NBA. 12 games, 24 of 30 NBA teams in action. We'll have some thoughts on the ice, and of course, he is our jack of all trades. As spring training games begin today, we just talked a little bit of baseball. We'll need some early MLB thoughts from Tom Vecchio as well. Vecchio, thank you for joining us here on this Thursday on the Early Line.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a couple weeks. It's good to be back. We are at a very exciting point in the year for sports. Like you said, MLB spring training starting today. I have a lot of thoughts when it comes to those future markets. I'm ready to go.
Tom Vecchio, last year, you correctly predicted the home run champion in Major League Baseball, Matt Olson of the Atlanta Braves. You had the ticket, you had the clip to prove it all. We look at those odds for 2024, the regular season home run leader. We call you many things here. We bring your prop perspective in. You are the jack of all trades, also our home run prop king. So who will be the king of the home runs in 2024 in MLB?
So I have yet to make a final pick for this, but if you were to ask me, and with no betting odds, implied, it was nothing about betting, saying who's my pick this year? Who do I think is actually going to do it? I think it's Pete Alonso this year. Contract year, discussions about him being traded, no extension. He's got the power. He actually was really solid last year despite that wrist injury. His home run rate was actually very, very strong. He's minimizing the strikeouts. So if you're asking me no betting odds, I think it's Pete Alonso. The first player on that list I would have interest in would be Ronald Acuna Jr. because we obviously want to balance his talent and his overall skill with the betting odds. So I have no interest in Pete Alonso's number unless it falls to 12, 13 to 1 if someone else jumps out to a super early lead. As the list goes further down, I do have a ton of interest in Adolis Garcia, who I believe is at 46 to 1 or 45 to 1. He obviously had a fantastic postseason, and he has immense power. The strikeouts are an issue for him. So my final pick is yet to be in, but Acuna is probably leading the way as of now.
Let me ask you a couple questions on this, too, and let's keep it in New York. You take a look at the leader in the clubhouse right there, at least odds-wise at FanDuel, is coming with Aaron Judge at a plus 380 price. Maybe having some issues with that big toe. He said it's going to be maintenance the entire season on it, which could scare some folks away. But Juan Soto coming to the Bronx in that short right field porch, he looks like the sky could be the limit. He got 35 last year playing in a division, quite frankly, with the Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants, certainly in Arizona with the Humidor, where you didn't get a lot of great looks at home runs, still got 35. Now being over here in the East, are you looking at Juan Soto at all for the Yanks this year?
I will. I think his odds probably something to do with total hits or to lead the league in hits. That's where it's probably going to offer the most value just because he's a phenomenal contact hitter. Something along those lines. In terms of overall home runs, he can obviously get there, but I wouldn't take him to lead the league. I think they're just players that are better pure home run power hitters compared to him, who's more of a contact, overall well-rounded hitter.
Yeah, 14 to 1 on Juan Soto. That short porch inside Yankee Stadium, always something to pay attention to. You are our home run prop king. We will have plenty more Major League Baseball thoughts in the month leading up to the actual regular season beginning. But now we go back to the regular season resuming in the NBA. Following the All-Star break, first games in the association in a full week's time, and we have 12 on this Thursday. Let's fire through, and let's start with a marquee matchup out in the Western Conference. The second best team in the Western Conference at this moment, the Oklahoma City Thunder, 37-17. The record for OKC entering the All-Star break. Only a half game behind the LA Clippers, 36-17 for the Clips. Vecchio, the Thunder booked as a 1.5 home favorite tonight, just minus 118 now on that money line. What is your expectation for this game to start off the home stretch of this NBA season?
Well, not just for this game, but I think overall games tonight, I think players may come out a little bit sluggish first quarter and a half. So I think live overs actually could be really profitable tonight. And when we're looking at this game, obviously a lot of star power, SGA, Holmgren, Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Westbrook, Paul George, all these options. My favorite option, as I always say, is going to the secondary markets with Jalen Williams for the Thunder, over 8.5 rebounds plus assists, sitting at minus 104. SGA is awesome, but he can't do it all by himself against this Clippers team, which is very, very good. And they've obviously been trending upward as the season goes on. So Jalen Williams doing a little bit of everything, adding in the peripheral stats, over 8.5 rebounds and assists.
Let's take a look at a big game tonight, too. And the NBA certainly giving us what we wanted, waiting off of that All-Star game on Sunday night. The Phoenix Suns and the Dallas Mavericks will tee it up 7:30 p.m. tonight. FanDuel opened up this line as a short favorite, -2 towards the Dallas Mavericks. We've now seen that settle in at 1.5 and a great total here, listed at 245. Suns, Mavericks, from your vantage point tonight, Tom.
Bradley Beal isn't expected to play tonight, dealing with a couple different things. I like Devin Booker over 2.5 threes. It's at +124, +126, wherever you may be finding it. This isn't like an extra usage thing. Booker's obviously seen the ball plenty. It's not like he has a massive change in role because Bradley Beal's out. This is a game environment thing. Both teams are actually playing faster as the last few games of the prior to the All-Star break ended. They were around the league average, but in the last 3 games, they're both in top 4 league in pace. We have a great over-under. We should be seeing plenty of back-and-forth action, and Booker is routinely taking 8, 9, 10 threes, so he doesn't have to be super efficient. It's more of a volume play and a game environment thing.
Dallas, the hottest team in the Western Conference, entering the All-Star break, winners of 6 in a row. They have covered in 5 of those 6 games. Now we go up to San Francisco. 2 teams in the 9 and 10 spots in the Western Conference standings in the play-in tournament, maybe trying to start this postseason push to get out. No LeBron James for the Lakers tonight. He is dealing with an ailing ankle following a performance in the All-Star game on Sunday. 5.5-point number now in favor of the Dubs at home, who enter the All-Star break winners of 5 of their last 6, and now a full game, 27-26, above 500. Will Golden State keep it rolling here following the All-Star break?
I think they win. I'm not sure if they cover. We saw the Lakers play pretty well, even with LeBron and AD out of the lineup that game. Beginning in February there in Boston, they won outright as 13-point underdogs because Reeves had a solid game, D'Angelo Russell as well. But tonight it's going to be Anthony Davis over 28.5 points. As you said, both teams fighting for every single win that they can get at the 9-10 play. And so, this is not the time to mess around. Give Anthony Davis the ball. Let him take 22, 24 field goal attempts tonight, over 28.5 points. It's not like the Warriors or the Lakers have been solid on defense. So back and forth action, keeping things consistent. And overall for the NBA at this point in the year, I think we're going to see player rotations tighten up. So it should give you a little more consistency when it comes to player props. No more of these bench players seeing minutes. Just get the star players in, get the wins that you need.
Winning and covering can be 2 different things. We take a look at a game that tips off at 9 p.m. tonight. That's the Wizards and the Nuggets. The Wizards not really fighting for anything other than how many ping pong balls they can get. The Denver Nuggets looking to get into that sprint in the second half of the season and maybe knock down a number 1 overall seed. We opened up this line at the FanDuel Sportsbook at 16.5 as a favorite towards the Denver Nuggets. We're down to 15 even and a total of 232. Are we sleepwalking in Denver tonight, or is this going to be an easy victory for those Nuggets?
This is probably one of the worst games on the slate, all things considered. I don't expect a big performance, or a needed big performance, I should say, from the Nuggets. I don't expect Jokic to have to play a single second in the fourth quarter because they're going to be up by so much. So I actually like Jokic under 50.5 PRA. If he hits the over, he's either A, extremely efficient in the first half and they're up by 30, or B, something went horribly wrong for the Nuggets. And I'm banking on them just being ahead and every well-rounded contribution from Murray and Gordon and Porter, where Jokic doesn't have to drop a triple-double and have a 30-20 game. So I'm siding with the under. It's not going to be a pretty one.
A 15-point spread in favor of Denver. Washington and Detroit, the 2 teams that before the All-Star break had not reached at least double-digit wins this year. The Wiz have lost 8 straight games. They did cover in 4 of their last 5 as double-digit underdogs before that All-Star break in Indianapolis and beyond. So, Vecchio, the individual games tonight start the stretch run of this NBA season. As you look at the title odds all around the association, where do you think the best bet is before this stretch run begins?
I think the Suns obviously present the combination of odds and a possibility of winning it. However, I do like the Thunder at 25-1, and this goes along with what I've brought up before, which is dating back to last year when you had that Kings ticket, which is just getting a ticket on a team that's going to finish at the top of the conference and going to have home court advantage in the first, maybe second round, is something that you should just objectively be interested in. Do I think that they're the best team in the West overall? No, I think in a 7-game series, I would take the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Suns ahead of the Thunder. But I want them at this ticket so I can maybe cash out, hedge out, whatever it might be when the second round comes around. That's what it really comes down to.
Let me ask you a quick question about the Philadelphia 76ers, seeing that 30-1 price on winning the NBA championship. Is there value on the Sixers if you say, you know what, if I get Embiid back in any capacity heading towards the playoffs, I'll have a pretty good price at that 30-1 or better?
Yeah, I don't mind it. Like, again, if they can sneak into the 5, take on the Knicks or the Cavs in the first round, and Embiid is healthy, that's a series they can win, considering we don't know the full health of the Knicks at this point. So you can take that, roll that into the second round. It's not going to be an easy path for them going up against someone like Boston. But again, same mindset. You just take the ticket, and whatever happens, happens. You can move on with a little bit of profit.
That will certainly ride on the health of Joel Embiid, not here down the home stretch of this regular season. Philadelphia, by the way, still 10 games above 500 in the 5 spot out east, but how things look in the playoffs for the 76ers and Embiid. Just quickly here, let's show the graphic one more time. Tom's top props for this Thursday as the NBA regular season resumes. Devin Booker over 2.5 made threes. Anthony Davis over 28.5 points. Tom Vecchio, we appreciate the time as always and your prop perspective. More NBA handicaps next. Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Siorio doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilkes and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilkes' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points, defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points, and then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
More action around the association as the regular season resumes following the All-Star break. 12 NBA games tonight, 24 of the 30 NBA clubs in action on this Thursday evening. Again, this is not the second half getting underway, the unofficial second half perhaps. It's the stretch run. It's the playoff push. All 30 NBA teams have played at least 53 games, meaning all 30 have less than 30 games remaining. Only 2 teams have only played 53 games. Golden State in action as a 5.5-point home favorite tonight against the Lakers, and the Cleveland Cavaliers, who entered the All-Star break with maybe the best calendar year of 2024 that we have seen. The Cavs now, Donnie, second best record in the Eastern Conference, still 6 games behind the Boston Celtics, but 36-17 and a 7.5-point favorite at home tonight against Orlando, the over-under 215.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see also talking with Tom Vecchio. And again, this is just about any sport. Coming out of the All-Star break, most of these guys did get away for a couple days here. Now coming back, you should be refreshed and ready. But also, does that mean that your jumper is going to be on point from 17 to 19 feet? We'll find that out tonight. But the interesting part about this game tonight, it's a heavy favorite for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and rightfully so. But some late word coming back that Paolo Banchero now questionable for a game tonight, not due to injury, Ben, but due to illness here coming out of the All-Star break. So if we're looking at Banchero not playing in this basketball game, that's probably already somewhat reflected in that line. And if he is out, could we be seeing a double-digit line here for the Cleveland Cavaliers? For me, it's tough. You don't want to sit out when the NBA does come back tonight. But if you're looking at the Orlando Magic already banged up before this game even begins, going to be tough to take the road team, even if they're getting 7, 8, or 9 points tonight by the time we hit game time.
The Magic are the best cover team in the NBA at the All-Star break. 36-19 against the spread is that ATS mark with a 65.5% cover percentage, best in the NBA. Orlando and OKC, the only 2 teams covering at a greater than 60% hit rate. But Cleveland dropped to 18-15 after suffering a loss on New Year's Day. From that point, in their 20 games up until the All-Star break, the Cavs won 18 of them. They covered in 13 of those 18 victories, 11 times as the favored side. Cleveland has also gone under a ton here as of late in 6 of their last 8 entering the All-Star break. Now, Orlando got off to a really good start, started to struggle just a little bit, but into the All-Star break, they won 6 of their final 8. The Magic, a really good cover team, but if Paolo's not out there tonight, I would lean with where the market is working. 7.5-point favorite in for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that over-under at 215. Next up, we go to a game in the city of brotherly love between the Philadelphia 76ers and the New York Knicks. Very short number, minus 112 money line in favor of Philly, minus 104 on the money line for New York. The slight road underdogs are the Knickerbockers tonight. The over-under, 227.5. In the month of January, New York was 14-2, under in 14 of 16 games in January as well. In February, New York just 2-5. They lost 4 straight entering the All-Star break. Philly without Joel Embiid, they have dropped 9 of their last 12 games as well. What happens tonight in the first game for both following the All-Star break?
Yeah, both of these teams, Ben, as you said, really needed to get to the All-Star break and limping through it. So you say, okay, it's that second half sprint. Let's see what happens. Well, the anticipated starting lineup tonight for the Philadelphia 76ers, Maxey, Hield, Oubre, Harrison, Reed, that's about what you expect. Why? Because, of course, we know Joel Embiid is not coming back for at least weeks, maybe even months at this point right now. But the one thing you're hoping for, if you're a Knicks fan or backer, is like, okay, we got to the break here. We had guys banged up. Let's get some of those guys back. But looking at the anticipated starting lineup tonight, Ben, Brunson, DiVincenzo, Hart, Achua, and Hartenstein. So still waiting on OG to come back into that lineup here, and Julius Randle. So for that fact of matter, I'm going to take the Philadelphia 76ers as a slight favorite tonight in their own building. I'll go that route.
I'm actually going to look at the New York Knicks. I do think more than taking a side, I like the under tonight. First game for both teams following the All-Star break. And when the Knicks play their best basketball, it is Tom Thibodeau basketball. Defense is first and foremost, and pregame totals tend to stay under 227.5. I like the under tonight in Philly between the Knicks and the 76ers. Best team in the NBA, and by a pretty good margin, is the Boston Celtics, the only team to reach the 40-win benchmark prior to the break, and they have 3 more than 40. It's a 43-12 record for the C's. Boston's first game following the All-Star break, 8.5-point road favorite in Chicago against the Bulls, the over-under 226. We often talk, Donnie, about reading lines in college basketball, where motivation is a little bit easier to throw into the handicap in conference games between rivals as a home team is an underdog or whatever it might be. I think this is a strong C's line for a reason as well.
No, it certainly is, too. And you take a look at that anticipated starting lineup, which is full go. Holiday, White, Brown, Tatum, and Porzingis. But sometimes it needs to be said, and we talked about this with the Milwaukee Bucks earlier in the show with Giannis Antetokounmpo, basically giving those interviews like, I can't wait to get back to work. Like, we're finally through it. Once you get past the All-Star break, there is no tomorrow, as we like to say. You're either in it to win it or you're going to fade down the stretch. And I expect big things from the Celtics. You don't want to start out of the break with a loss or maybe stumble and give some other teams hope, like the Milwaukee Bucks, that they might be able to chase down the Boston Celtics for that number 1 overall seed. I'm with you on this one. This should be a double-digit victory for the Boston Celtics, because if we're taking a look at both of these teams, are the Bulls saying, hey, now's our chance to get into the playoffs and do some damage? No, they're not doing that. But the Boston Celtics, yeah, they're saying, let's solidify our number 1 seed here, and it starts tonight.
43-12 overall record for Boston, 17-9 away from TD Garden, where they have by far the best home record in the NBA, 26-3. 55 games overall. The C's have been booked as a favorite in 53 of them, 24-26-3 against the number. On the road, 9-12-3 against the spread as an away favorite. I would still probably lean with laying the 8.5 in favor of Boston tonight. The Bulls 3 games below 500, 26-29, technically still in the 9th spot in the Eastern Conference. They would be in the play-in tournament if the season ended today. In the 6th spot in the Western Conference as of this moment, the New Orleans Pelicans, 11 games above 500, 33-22. The Pels a 7-point home favorite tonight against the Houston Rockets. What do you like?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with the Pels in this game tonight, too. Same sort of, initiative that we're taking a look at the Boston Celtics. Let's set the tone for the second half of the season, or at least that sprint post-All-Star break. I think the Pelicans can do the same thing. What's the only worry about the Pelicans? You show up, Zion had a couple days off. Oh, no, Zion gained a couple pounds, and he's not in playing shape. Outside of that, I mean, really, they should roll in this game tonight. The Houston Rockets, that young team got away from the, hey, you know what? I got 7 days off. Let's go relax and spend some of this money out here. So I'm going to bet on the Pelicans tonight. I think they win and win easily.
The Rockets a dog 35 times this year, 16, 18, 1 against the spread. The Pels, 11 games above 500, won 8 of their final 9 entering the All-Star break. Only covered, though, 4 times in those 8 wins. I still think they will cover this number tonight at home against the Houston Rockets. Now we turn our attention to some college basketball on this Thursday evening. We go out to a top 25 tilt in Arizona, in Tucson. It's the Wildcats taking on the Washington State Cougars. And you might be saying, wait, Wazoo is involved in a ranked battle? Yes, they are. Washington State ranked in the AP poll for the first time since 2008, and they check in at 21st in all the land. Pay attention to what Kyle Smith is doing up in the Palouse, because Washington State is going to be a team to reckon with come the NCAA tournament, ranked for the first time since 2008, trying to make their first NCAA tournament since 2008 as well. And yet a 12.5-point spread tonight in favor of Tommy Lloyd and the Cats, over under 150 and a hook.
And by the way, you might be looking at this game like, I don't really hear too much about Washington State. Both Washington State and Arizona have some nice winning streaks coming into this basketball game tonight. And if you go back just a couple weeks into the season, Washington State already has a W over Arizona. So revenge on the mind of the Wildcats. If you take a look there at that 12.5-point number, you can read into that. That is really an Arizona line. Arizona, the number 1 overall defense in efficiency in Pac-12 play. You take a look at their offense, also number 1, so a deadly combination. But some things are interesting here, which I think line up fairly well for Arizona. You take a look at the point distribution here from 2-point range, which is what you really focus on for Arizona. They're 3rd in conference play. But how about this? 3rd in conference play at giving up points inside the paint paint is Washington. One of those teams here that you take a look at Arizona doesn't rely overall on the three-point shot, and rightfully so. Good for them tonight because number one at chasing you off of the three-point line is Washington State here. I look for a big bounce back here for Arizona coming back from losing that game a couple weeks previous here. I'm looking for a big win tonight, but also maybe an under 150.5 for me out there in the Pac-12 tonight.
First matchup between these two, 73-70. That was up in Pullman on the Palouse. They won outright, did Wazoo, as a 9-point home underdog. The total of 153 did stay under. Only 143 points would stay under this number as well. I don't think it's an outright upset. I do believe the Cougs get a cover. In their last 5 games in Pac-12 play as an underdog, they have won outright in all 5 of those games, including that matchup against Arizona. That often happens for a team that is overperforming on expectation. The books are hesitant to move them off their power rating and that model to make them a lesser underdog or even the favored side. But that's not the case here. It's a 12.5-point spread. Again, I don't think Wazoo wins outright in Tucson. I do believe Washington State can cover this number, staying within 12.5. Arizona has not been the best cover team in Pac-12 play. Big Ten action in West Lafayette and Mackey. Tough one for Rutgers, who always plays Purdue tough, but Purdue is coming off a loss on the road in Columbus on Sunday against Ohio State. Some time off to reflect and to make a statement. The Boilers booked as a 15.5-point home favorite.
Might be too much here. That 138.5 also sticks out, not to the over, to the under for me. The one interesting thing about Rutgers, they probably are the perfect under team as they look because why? They are horrendous on offense and tremendous, Ben, on defense, which usually factors out well. They match up actually fairly well against this Purdue team in 2-point distribution, 12th in conference play, which is kind of wild. You think that Purdue would have such an advantage in the paint, but they do shoot the 3-point shot rather well. That's one of the spots here that you could take advantage here of Rutgers, but doesn't look like they're going to be able to do that tonight. Is it going to be an easy win for Purdue? Probably so, but I'm looking more at the under here because Rutgers, the only way they can win this is not getting into a shootout with Purdue. It's turning this into a true rock fight and limiting to possessions. Give me the under 138.5.
Total slightly on its way up, now listed at 139.5 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights are to Big Ten men's basketball what Iowa is to Big Ten football. Offensive efficiency numbers for Rutgers, 276 out of 362. Defensive efficiency, 2. Second best defensive team in the country. Rutgers has the 3rd highest under percentage of high major teams this year. Only Vandy and Notre Dame have had more games go to the under than Rutgers. 68% of their games, 17 of the 25 that they have played. They did win 4 straight before they got beat by Minnesota on the road on Sunday. And in all 4 of those wins, the opposing team scored 60 points or less. That is Steve Pikiell pounding nails basketball. Again, just a tough spot against Purdue as they return home to Mackey. I've got some more thoughts on Big Ten basketball and a best bet that I love. Donnie Rightside will give you one as well. The NBA is back. College basketball rolls on. We will give you a best bet before we say farewell here on the early line up next. Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Cioriano doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points, defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points, and then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Rounding out a Thursday live right here on the early line on SportsGrid, all across the SportsGrid network. I am Ben. He is Donnie. This is the SportsGrid app, the ultimate sports betting companion app, available for download at both the Apple and the Play Store. Scan that QR code on your screen. In the SportsGrid app, 5-star plays. Those are known as best bets. So before we say farewell, we give you a best bet as well. Before we say goodbye, you bet your bottom dollar. It's a best bet. It is time for bye, bye, bye. $12 NBA games tonight following the All-Star break. So much college basketball action on this Thursday with 3 top 25 teams in action. What gets Donnie Right-Side's best bet?
I'll tell you, we're going to go to the Philadelphia 76ers here going up against the New York Knicks, but it's actually 2 best bets in one game here. Not taking a side or a total. I'm going to take Tyrese Maxey to go over 26.5 points here as the first leg. And the last game we saw him against Miami Heat before the break, dropped 30 points here. No one's Joel Embiid. He's going to have to shoot. I believe he will. 30 points should be in the equation. But how about Buddy Hield? Over 4.5 assists here, Ben, as we take a look. Did you know Buddy Hield coming over his last 4 games? 6 assists, 6 assists, 8 assists, and 10 assists. He's only listed at 4.5 assists tonight. Give me Buddy Hield's assists over 4.5 and Tyrese Maxey over 26.5 points from the city of brotherly love.
A small little same-game parlay from Donnie Right-Side for the Sixers opener following the All-Star break against the Knicks. I'm going to college basketball. And the best cover team in all of the country, that's the Minnesota Golden Gophers. The only team that has covered in more than 20 games. Minnesota has covered in 22. They are 22-3 against the spread. That's an 88% cover clip. They're a 3.5-point home favorite tonight against Ohio State. The Buckeyes, with interim head coach Jake Diebler, pulled off the impossible, upsetting Purdue on Sunday. That's the high. This is the low. Minnesota wins and covers tonight at the Barn in Minneapolis. He's Donnie. I'm Ben. We'll see you on a Friday here on the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern.